Hello, my name is Peter Webber. I'm a filmmaker and I am here at FEST Film Festival in Espinho, just south of Porto.
Very good. It's your first time in Espinho?
No, I think it's my third or fourth time, possibly.
Yes. And what do you think of the town and of the festival?
Well, listen, I've come back 3 or 4 times, so I obviously like it, yeah? I mean, one of the things that I love in particular about this festival is the fact that it's new directors, new films, that young talent is attracted. And for me, I've been doing this for a long time, and it is possible. As you know, when you become a gentleman of a certain age, you can get a bit cynical, you can become a bit tired, you can become a bit battered, because it's difficult to make a life in filmmaking, because it's a tough business in many ways. But when I come here, you know, you have the energy and the enthusiasm of people who are starting out, they're trying to break into the industry, or they're making their first films. And that reminds me of why I started this in the first place. And it's like it washes away your sins and it washes away the years. And so I find it very inspirational, you know. And also there's something, it's that, you know, you feel that you can help people, you can give some of your experience to them, you can maybe give them some lessons, give them some clues, some ideas, some things to avoid, and that just feels very, very good, you know, because I know when I was a young filmmaker, when I got to meet directors, real directors who are, you know, earning a living and making TV or films or whatever, it made me feel this is possible. You know, because when you start, sometimes it seems an impossible hurdle. How am I going to get my first film made? How's anyone going to listen to me? You know, and I've now been doing this for a very, very long time, you know, 20, 30 years, whatever. And so it's quite good to, you know, to be here. You can kind of go, it can be done. You'll have to find your own way, because the path that I took, no one else can follow. I started in a certain time, in a certain place, but you know, if you want to do this for the right reasons, if you're passionate about the medium, if you're passionate about storytelling, you know, if you really love filmmaking, and you're not doing it because you think it's a cool job or you want to be rich or you want to be famous, you know, if you have that will see you through the ups and downs, because there's a lot of ups and downs, you know, and so it's great to be part of that process.
This is a part of the context of the presentation you gave to the people who were here today. What more did you tell them?
Well, sorry, say that again?
What more that did you tell
Well, I mean, listen, it was quite a wide-ranging discussion. We started off and we were talking about the landscape at the moment, post-COVID. There's a lot of technological changes have happened in the last few years. The arrival of the streaming platforms. COVID has really done a lot of damage towards theatrical distribution, cinemas, you know. Cinemas are getting back on their legs. Are they going to arrive there? So we started off with that, but it was very wide-ranging. You know, we were talking about the qualities you need to be a good director, outside of the technical things, you know. What are those qualities? Well, I was talking specifically, I was asked about, you know, did I have any tips in terms of being a director? And I was talking about leadership skills. You know, I was talking about the fact that when we think about director and we think about they're artists and everything, that there are some ways in which you're a team manager, you're a project manager. Okay, so don't just think about things in terms of, you know, being this great grand artist, and empathy is important, emotion, respect for your crew, you know, having a clear vision of the kind of film you want to make, because you have to provide direction, you have to inspire people. Crews work on many different kind of things, they turn up every day. Why should they even care? You know, it's a tough job. People are on set for 12 hours plus a day. So we were talking about that, about the qualities that you need to be a director. And then we ended up having a conversation about the war in Ukraine, about the current discussions going on about whether one should censor Russian filmmakers or welcome them into the fold, and where we ended up talking about South Africa. I mean, it was incredibly wide-ranging. The important thing is that a filmmaker, as a creative person, is, you know, you're in a culture, your role is always political in some way, or even if you're not obviously being political, you know, belonging to a political party or something like that. There is a politics of everyday life. We were talking about diversity, for example, you know, so it's a wide-ranging conversation about the responsibility of the the artist, and also some of the challenges that we're facing in an era of pandemics, climate change, war. You know, it's complicated times we live in, and platforms are changing. The way that people see films are changing. The importance of being able to improvise and find ways to get to your audience. So it was very good. It became a good discussion at the end. It wasn't just me blubbing on.
You were talking about diversity.
Yeah.
Do you think that we are more conservative now that we?
Well, I think there is more diversity in terms of the male-female balance within the crew and the racial balance within the crew than there used to be. And I think that there are more different voices. It's slow, but it's happening. So it's not just white, male, middle-class, middle-aged men like myself who are making films like it used to be. You know, that we dominated the landscape. That is changing, and that's very, very good. Where it's more complicated is because there is also a slightly, there's a feeling out there amongst certain people that you can't talk about certain things. Political correctness, wokeness, whatever you want to call it, that there are certain opinions which are correct and certain opinions that aren't correct. So there are kinds of films, and Gaspard Ulliel was talking about this as well, that were made in the 70s that couldn't be made now. So I think we're a work in progress. You have to be careful. You have to, have all these new voices. But I don't know that I want to live in a culture where people are shouted down or cancelled. But equally, we need a vigorous debate. If you want to put your opinions out there, you should be prepared to debate them. And it's good that there's a multiplicity of opinions. But there are certain films that were made in the 1970s that would never be made now. And Gaspard was saying he didn't know whether, Irreversible could be made now, for example. So we have to be careful we don't lose something at the same time. But this is all a work in progress, and it's where you have culture wars, two entrenched sides, that's very bad. But as long as we keep a vital conversation going, then I think that's the important thing.
But don't you think that it is a bit strange in an era that you have internet, you have pornography everywhere, violence, and we are turning around?
I think human beings are complex creatures. I think there's two things here. One is that I think people are scared and insecure because the world is changing. We have, like I said before, climate change. We have pandemics. We have economic dislocation. Yeah, and people are scared about their place. They feel insecure, and sometimes when people feel insecure, they become very tribal. Yeah, and because they're trying to control everything, they're trying to turn the clock backwards. So that means that advances we've made in terms of women's rights and gay rights. Well, look at women's rights in America, where the right to abortion has been overturned in certain states and may end up being overturned together. So it's an era where rights are under attack, and there is a shift towards populism and the right wing, and it's this is there's it's a complicated time that we live in. And I think that the other thing is that the internet has both, like any human invention, like the car, it brings great benefits, but it also brings traffic accidents, pollution, destruction of livable cities, but it gives us a freedom. It's the same with the internet. There's positive and negative. And the problem is, it used to be, if you or I, where do you live, by the way?
Porto.
Okay, so in Porto, you would go into a bar and there would be a guy sitting on the end there. He's a crazy guy and he has theories. He kind of goes, oh, I don't believe in vaccines. It's Bill Gates and they're injecting microchips into us to control us. He would just be a crazy guy in the bar. You'd go, yeah, okay, Pedro, that's it. And you'd leave the bar. Nowadays, Pedro, the crazy guy who thinks that we're all being injected with microchips, he can get on the internet and he meets another crazy guy and another crazy woman and this person, and then from all over. And so these nutters, as we call them in England, people who believe in conspiracies, people who believe in fantasies, are able to get together and create a critical mass in a way they never could beforehand. Stupidity has been weaponized by the internet. So the internet is great in terms of communication and liberation, but also it's introduced some terrible things. The other thing I was thinking, you mentioned pornography. When I grew up, a long time ago now, not like there was no pornography, It was difficult to see porn films, but there were porn magazines, okay? And these things were passed around, sniggering teenage boys in the back of classrooms. But now you can press a button and you can see the most violent, transgressive, awful stuff. And so as a kid, you know, if you're being exposed to this, it's like, okay, we want adults to be free to watch whatever they want. But equally, I don't know that it's good for a youngster's sexual, emotional development to be exposed to this stuff really early on. So it's swings and roundabouts, you know. So I think that has released very violent currents into the culture. I think we're living in an age of extremes. I think we're coming to the end of a period of relative, in Western Europe, relative economic prosperity, relative peace, you know, and I think that things are becoming much more complicated and potentially dangerous and fractured and fragmented, and we are going to need filmmakers more than ever to tell us stories, to entertain us and distract us from the day-to-day problems, but also to deal with these changes and help us understand and find a new way to live.
In the other hand, we have now streaming.
Yeah.
And we have 10-year kids seeing Squid Game,
Yeah.
Stranger Things.
Yeah.
It is horror.
Yeah.
How do we...
Well, I mean, you know, this is, I mean, the thing is, it puts a responsibility on individual parents to try and control that. Kids will always, I mean, when I was a kid, I was watching things I shouldn't have done, and maybe it affected me badly. It's easier to get hold of that stuff now, you know. I think it's all about finding balance, yeah? And it's, you know, I mean, what are you saying, that we shouldn't make Squid Game in case a 10-year-old sees it? I mean, that's crazy as well, you know. And a 10-year-old may understand it more than you or I, because for me, the narrative form of the Squid Game is taken from video games, yeah? Now, I didn't grow up playing video games because they didn't exist. I doubt that you did either. Yes. But for a youngster, they understand those narrative patterns and maybe they see it in a different way. Yeah, sure, you know, we react to the violence and the randomness of the violence and everything, but it makes sense in a different way to kids who've grown up from the age of 5 playing Call of Duty or, you know, Unchained or any of these other video games. So, you know, the world is changing, and it's changing in ever rapid ways. And this, I think, is one of the reasons why the medium that we work in, cinema, TV, whatever, audiovisual, is very important, because it's becoming the rate of change is faster and faster, and we need guides to help us understand how to navigate this new landscape.
And are you comfortable with the people leaving the theaters and seeing things in small phones?
It's, you know, I mean, I understand where David Lynch is coming from when he says it's a crime to watch something on an iPhone. But I've sat on the top deck of a bus and watched something on an iPhone, you know. So I think the thing is, you can't stop people using new technology and consuming it in different ways, and it can be liberatory. Some of my favourite films are French New Wave films. The ones that I fell in love with cinema when I was a teenager were French New Wave films, and the only reason they could be made was because new cameras had been invented that were, rather than the old heavy Mitchell cameras that you could hardly move, you know, Arriflex, small 16mm cameras, which meant that you could get out of the studios, you know, fast film stock, so you could use less light, and it liberated people. So new technology can be very liberating, but you can never control what happens with it. You know, William Gibson, the great author, science fiction, cyberpunk author, as he was originally, says the street finds its own uses for technology, you know. So you may think something's going to be used in a certain way, it's going to be very different. What are we supposed to do as filmmakers? Make it illegal to watch our film on? I mean, I think the thing is that, you know, it will change. The moderator of the masterclass I did, you know, was telling me some scary stories about the fact that the kids she teaches, 15-year-olds, have never watched a 90-minute long film. Their attention span is really small. I don't know I mean, education becomes important. You know, maybe being able to create a space where people can have a longer attention span, but equally, the world is going to change. It's going to change at ever increasing rates. We have to find a way as filmmakers to respond to that. Maybe we're going to have to make shorter films. Maybe we're going to have to make different things. You know, it's a whole process of invention. Theatre is very different now to how it was in Shakespeare's time, but people still watch Shakespeare, you know? So there are some voices that stay true and eternal forever.
Well, the stories are there in
Yeah.
Shakespeare. So.
Yeah, true.
So Last question.
Okay.
About the relationship between directors and actors. We have a lot of opinions on this festival.
Yeah.
So, what is your opinion?
I mean, I think that collaboration is the most important thing. You know, there are many different, just like there are many different kinds of films, there are many different kinds of directors. Yeah, there are some directors who they don't move from their monitor. And I think Gael was saying this yesterday at your masterclass, you know, that they're happy with the technical stuff. There are others who come from a different background who want to interact. Some people want to use their actors as puppets. Some don't want to. I mean, Gaspard Ulliel was saying he never even directs his actors. He doesn't tell them what to do, you know. So as many different directors there are, you'll have many different approaches, and that means that we have a variety of films. So I don't think there is one way of working with them. I mean, I think what you want to do to be a good director, you have to help them be as brave, inventive, fresh, entertaining, exciting as possible, okay? And different people do that in different ways. There are some films which are incredibly detailed and need a certain kind of choreography, and they find entertainment in the whole visual extravaganza. There are other films that are super simple and can be equally entertaining, just it can be one person talking to a camera. So I don't think there are any rules, you know. I mean, who was it? Chairman Mao said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. I think that's the thing. We want to have a variety of ways of working, and as long as the work remains vital, inspired, exciting, then that's fine.
And you can like all of them.
Well, I mean, you know, I like a variety of you know, crazily different. I mean, I might watch a 3.5 hour long film by Tarkovsky. I don't want to watch that every single day. Another day I might watch Squid Game, okay? I mean, it's completely different. Sometimes you want, you know, you've had a bad day. You've been stuck in lockdown for ages. Sometimes you don't want to think. You just want to be entertained. You want to watch something stupid, you know. So I don't want everything to be a reality show with the Kardashians in it. You know, they're not my idea of entertainment, but I don't object to someone else watching it. The problem is when something dominates. So I do have one problem, let's say with Hollywood at the moment, where the business model has changed so that the majority of their output are superhero movies. And I think it's a shame that they're making less and more expensive films. Personally, I preferred it in like the 70s and the early 80s when studios were making a wider variety of films in a wider variety of genres. I think that was a more interesting time. So I think when things become like Walmart, you know, the mom and pop stores disappear and you get these big monolithic things, I think that is a problem. Diversity in culture, as in casting, is a very good thing. We want a pond where many different animals live, you know, and not just a big fish that's eaten all the rest.
Okay, I have to finish.
Okay, all right, that's great.
Would like to
That was very good. I enjoyed